I think everyone is here and present. Mr. Chair, for the French Forum on Peace, Mr. Angel Gurrier, dear Olivier as well, who is the President of Antarctica, Ambassador of France for Poles and Euro-Ocean, Mr. Secretary General for the OPPS, One Planet Polar Summit, Secretary General of the One Planet Summit, Pascal Lamy, President of Antarctica 2020, dear Valérie Masson-Delmotte, dear Jean Jouzel, dear scientists, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome all of you here to the French National Museum for Natural History for the One Planet Polar Summit. We are going to have many sessions over 2 days in 3 different lecture rooms. And I'd also like to welcome all those who are following us online. The forum is going to be dealing with our poles and our glaciers. And this is something which has become absolutely indispensable to all of us because of climate change, which is causing major changes and shifts in the cryosphere. I'd like to particularly thank our ambassador for poles and for the oceans for all his support. This is the first summit which is being organized under his aegis, and it's a great honor for us in the museum to receive all of you here. The museum is obviously well known in all its studies concerning biodiversity on land and at sea, and there are many commitments made by different organizations and entities. We'd just like to say that the museum, Musée de l'Homme, is also a museum which has participated very closely concerning the preservation of biodiversity in the poles. It also represents France in defending Arctic fauna and flora, and this is through the International Committee which deals with these particular issues. And also recently, in June 2021, was the 23rd meeting on the Antarctica, and the museum organized an extremely important meeting which was called Scientific Research in the Antarctic, How and Where. And the results of that summit, I think, will be felt today in the summit that we're opening this morning. One last point concerns the historical links that we've had with the polar world. Our museum has a great wealth of maps, of ethnographic results, and many different remnants of missions from missions carried out by Professor Charcot and others. And therefore, all these different exhibits are available for people to become more aware of the stakes that concern us. Today, the summit is once again highlighting the importance of scientific research in these parts of the world, particularly concerning the protection of biodiversity and the impact on local populations. And therefore, I think it is crucial to enable polar research to have the right sort of means, human, financial, and all the rest, so that there can be dynamic research in this area. Our museum is ready to organize an observatory for biodiversity in the eastern part of the Antarctic, and therefore bring the results so that we can convince the right decision makers to take protection and other decisions concerning the protection of this area. Another point that I'd like to make concerns the proceedings in the next 2 days. We hope that they will be extremely successful, so that our heads of state and government can actually sign a communiqué at the end of the 2 days concerning the issues that we are going to be discussing at the One Planet Polar Summit. I'd now like to give the floor to Olivier Poivre d'Arvor, who's our ambassador, and I'd like to thank you for your attention.
It's really great to have you in this freezing morning in Paris. The small delay. It's a bit French, you know, but we are here for 3 days. Some of you 2 days, but it's a great honor for us in France and for Mr. Macron, the French president, to be the organizer of this first summit dedicated to the cryosphere. And I will try to explain how we will work together, how we will spend time each, have probably also nice moments and the occasion to meet from all over the world. There are something like 35 countries represented in this Wernicke Theatre. It's a great pleasure, and I would like to thank again Gilles Bloch, who is the new chairman of the Museum of National d'Histoire Naturelle, to host this event. I'm not going to speak alone, so I will try to tell you a story, which is mine, in fact. I'm sorry. I've been appointed as ambassador for Poles and maritime issues 2.5 years ago. And being more specialist of Arabic countries, having been an ambassador in Tunisia, so I was absolutely lost, even if I was myself very much committed by the environment and the polar issues, but not as a specialist. And things start when Mr. Macron asked me to take over from Madame Royal, who was, you know, the second ambassador for polar issues. The first one was Michel Rocard. Michel Rocard was our prime minister, but you know, what probably will remind in the story is what he has done with Australia, which I would like also to thank, will be part and will sign the Call of Paris for the glaciers and the poles, and with Bob Hawke at this time, it was 89, the two countries, Australia and France, decided to say no to the perspective of extraction of minerals in Antarctica. And then my first call when I was appointed, first day, was with somebody who was at this time the director of the Institut Polaire Français, Paul Émile Victor. So I will ask Jérôme Chaplaz to join and to come on the stage, please, Jérôme. This man is incredible, you know, because he's a scientist. I think he's a scientist, but some people say he's a good glaciologist. But he's also, I would say, more than. And Jérôme was happy to know that he was a new ambassador, but also he was complaining at the first moment.
A lot.
A lack of money, you know. There's so many money for the space research, we need more money. So, and 2 years after, I have the pleasure to call Jérôme 2 months and 3 months ago to ask him to be co-chair of the Scientific Advisory Board, which is going to help us to know exactly what is happening in the glaciers and the poles worlds. But co-chair means there is another person, and the other one, I met her through one of my friends, Ashok Adisayam here, and she came from a very far part of the world, Bremerhaven. Have you heard about Bremerhaven? Yeah? It's a long way to here, and I will ask Antje Boethuis to join me on stage because she's a co-chair with Jérôme. Jérôme is no more French, he's from Switzerland now. And then I met somebody who is extremely important for me. He had an important position before he accepted to be here today. I will ask Pascal Lamy, he's kind of a model for me. Pascal, who is the Vice President of Antarctica. You probably met Pascal as a very serious man, you know, but now you can see he's very much NGOs porte-parole. So, and then I heard, because you know that was an initiative which was launched 5 years ago, I heard about the Paris Peace Forum, and at this time you were the president of the Paris Peace Forum, and I have the pleasure to meet Justin Weiss, who invented this Paris Peace Forum, and I will ask Justin to join us. Where is Justin? Is here? Is here, absolutely. Voilà. This summit is part of the Paris Peace Forum. I insist on the peace. We are not going to speak only about science. We are not going to speak about geopolitics. We are not going to speak about governments on Arctic, Antarctica. It's too complex for us today. But peace is important, you know. And if there is no science, if there are no scientists, there won't be any peace. And Arctic, Antarctica, and glaciers are a place where a lot of people live, and we do care about peace, and it's important for us to welcome at this occasion the new chairman of the Paris Peace Forum, Angèle Gurria.
Ladies and gentlemen, heads of government, heads of state, representatives of international organizations, ministers, ambassadors, excellencies, scientists, researchers, explorers, dear friends. My name is Angèle Gurria. I am the chair of the Paris Peace Forum, and I am delighted to take the floor here today at the opening session of the One Planet Polar Summit. This is the first international summit which is dealing with the two poles and the glaciers. I'd like to congratulate the French President of the Republic, President Macron, and the organizers, Ambassador Olivier Poivre d'Arvor and his team, for having taken the initiative of organizing this high-level meeting. And I know that the summit will help us to come up with a unquestionable scientific base concerning the understanding of the way our poles are managed and the cryosphere. The One Planet Polar Summit is being held at the same time as the French Peace, the Paris Peace Forum. The sixth Forum for Peace is going to be opening on the 10th in Paris, in the center of Paris. And I think there's quite an interesting conceptual link between our two meetings. In 2018, the Paris Peace Forum was born because it was quite clear that there was one great failing in our international governments and scheme of things. It was clear that it was impossible for our governments and countries to find solutions to veritable existential questions. That is, well-being of all, shared spaces, oceans, also outer space, climate, and world public goods. For example, health, world health. There were geopolitical strains and tensions which existed. And there's also a system in place which is perhaps a bit outdated. And these systems didn't allow us to be able to deal with all these challenges and find the right sort of standardized response. Therefore, at the Paris Peace Forum, we try to fill those gaps and find answers to some of these challenges. We harness the community of nations, of international organizations, philanthropists, NGOs, and the private sector, and bring them together once a year during this Peace Forum, which covers these different subjects. And what we do is try to take political initiatives or true action, which leads to certain commissions being set up. For example, the commission that Pascal Lamy is chairing, the Antarctica 2020, which deals with subjects such as climate change and the impact on the Antarctic and the Arctic. And also, we come up with proposals for innovative governance, which concerns every part of the world. As I mentioned earlier on, the 6th Paris Peace Forum is opening on the 10th, and its main theme this year is building together in a world of rivalry and competition. In our world, there is increasing competition and rivalry between the United States and China, but also there is increasing regional powers that are setting up different positions. This is happening as we speak in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and elsewhere in the world. For example, Nagorno-Karabakh in Africa and elsewhere. So we believe that cooperation, despite these conflicts, is possible. And concerning the poles and the cryosphere, there are geopolitical conflicts that represent the new borders, the new frontiers of multilateralism. And we are really counting on all of you. You have the know-how, the expertise, you know the subject inside out, you know the field, so that we can actually deal with these subjects in a constructive manner, in a consensual manner, and so that we can bring our decision makers, our political leaders, to take action rapidly and urgently, and also in a decisive manner, so that we can protect these areas. I wish all of you a very good summit and fruitful exchanges.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much.
You are going to work a lot in the next 2 days. And again, thanks to Justin Weiss and all his team for the Paris Peace Forum commitment. I will ask the tandem, the most glamorous tandem coming, just to explain what are you going to do during these 2 days, and what have you done the last 2 months, briefly.
Okay, Antje, would you like to start?
Okay. Hello, everyone, and it is fantastic to see so many friends in one place, and luckily not, and hello to the Zoom community, that we are all together. That means a lot. It just feels great to walk into this room and see all those faces and know that each one here is somehow connected to the whiteness of Earth that we will discuss in the coming days. And when Jerome and I had this famous call, I was at the North Pole, you were in Switzerland in the mountains, and Olivier was some other place. We had quickly the idea that we do not want to have sessions of biologists, chemists, social sciences, politicians, but that we really look and let us be driven by this landscape idea, by the idea of what does that nature mean to us. And because we've just heard the discussion of peace, you know that so many people in these times think that we are at war with nature. And that hurts if you have to explain what that means, what these words are standing for, and especially the white landscapes that Jerome will soon in a moment introduce. Those are the ones that are the absolute sensors, indicators of planet Earth, and thus we will talk about them. They are the center of this forum.
Thank you, Antje. Yeah, I share this pleasure of having so many well-known faces in this room, not only coming from France and Germany, but you've been able to come up here on a very rapid manner on something that was organized really on a rush, as you understood. But it's really a privilege, because I think for the very first time, we as scientists, and a lot of scientists are in this room, have a chance actually to gather our knowledge, not only through IPCC reports, and Valérie will speak about that in a few moments, but about the acceleration of what's going on with the cryosphere. We all see that in high altitude, in high latitudes, and one of the strengths of this meeting is actually to put these communities from the high altitude and the high latitudes together, because we have a lot to say together. And the strength, of course, is that on Friday 10th, we have a chance, Antje and I, to address the heads of state. We'll have 6 minutes, not much, but to convey the main messages. So we've been already working on these messages through these different themes, glacier, water cycle, sea level. That's one aspect which will be discussed here in this room. And then the aspect of ocean, sea ice, life and atmosphere. Antje will handle that in the Galerie de l'Évolution. I hope you will find your way to get there. And last but not least, Christopher Byrne and Claire Threet will deal with permafrost and georisk. And we thought that with these three themes, we cover more or less this interdisciplinary nature of the problem we have to face these days. Plus, Nicole Biebo, head of the European Polar Board, will handle a quite specific session tomorrow about local responses to cryospheric risk. So how we go next. And we have this chance to prepare this statement, scientific statement, that will be delivered to heads of state, and that will be annexed to the declaration that President Macron will give on Friday 10th. So again, I think it's a privilege, and the fact that you are all in this forum, you are here to help us strengthen what we have already written, because again, it was on a rush. We are supposed to give a draft to Élysée on Saturday. So we have already something at hand, but you are here to help us improve it.
And we have fantastic speakers. So this afternoon, when we have the science breakout sessions, we have some of the most eminent researchers, some of the representative of APEC, so the early career researchers who come with their new findings, and they all have prepared something that is new and unheard of, what has been seen in the past 2 years. And that will enable us, all of you who are attending the breakout sessions, to have even more convincing and urgent messages about what is changing out there, how it is different from the last round of reports, and also how does it connect to the people on Earth. This will be key to our sessions, that we also talk how the cryosphere connects all of us on one planet.
And if I'm right, your statement on cryosphere will be published with the Call of Paris for glaciers and poles. And this statement will be ready in a while, or is that already written?
It's ready, but it's getting better by the second.
You think so?
All of them here, they are writing under the desk something for you, Olivier.
Excellent. But see you in a while. Huh?
See you.
Thanks again for you. And you are advisory board. Very, very briefly, just one word. I would like to invite all the partners, which means, in fact, everybody will get on stage, because we were lucky when Mr. Macron decided just after the 14th of July to organize the first summit dedicated to glaciers and poles. That was very short, and some people were abroad as well. But fortunately, we met wonderful people committed everywhere in the world. So I would like, I will ask some of them, the leaders or the chairman of the WMO, if there are somebody from UNESCO, from COE, ICO to join on stage, just to see who is partner. Vladimir Ryabin. From ICCI, please, you can come. If there is somebody from the Arctic Circle, I would like to invite you on stage. You are not going to make a long speech, huh, Vladimir? It's 2 pages is too long. 1 minute. 1 minute.
You said 2 minutes.
No, I changed my mind. So 1 minute. WM, UNESCO, IOC, ICCI, Arctic Circle, ICIMOD from Nepal. And I would like on your name to say our great thoughts to Nepal, because you had this terrible earthquake a few days ago. So it's a great pleasure to have you on board. From WGMS, from EICS, from SCA, ISC, CNFRA is here. I think Anne was there. From APEX as well. From the Institut de Monaco, Oceanographic. From ISA. From the IPEV. There is a new one now in IPEV. A charming boy, which name is Yann Roper-Couder. Voilà. From the Alfred Wagner Institute, I say, well, all people who do think they are partners can come. Voilà. If there are some other, Tara, no, you are not. No, you are invited here. Who want to speak? Let's say 3. We have to start with Vladimir, you know, because he prepared all night his speech. 1 minute speech.
1 minute speech. 1 minute is 60 seconds. So, you know, first of all, wonderful to see so many friends after 8 years of work in UNESCO. Thank you, Olivier, for this opportunity. Now, the serious part of the speech is the following. You know, actually, the President Macron organized, with help of Olivier and many good people here, the Brest Summit on One Ocean. And this summit actually changed the situation in the ocean, because after that we had the support of presidents and prime ministers, and we are going to take this support through Decade of Ocean Science and convert the science we need into the ocean we want. The same should happen in the cryosphere. And you know, in the situation in cryosphere is there is a good science, there are good reports. It is very difficult to convert that knowledge into action. I believe that this summit at the highest level of power will be able to help us move forward such things like, for example, Year of Glacier Preservation 2025, International Polar Year, but most importantly, convert science into action. Thank you.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Impressed.
It was not my speech.
It was not a speech. We definitely to have a more male-female equilibrium, so we need some women on stage. Please.
I am not going, I'm Pam Pearson with ICCI. I'm not going to read something to be fast, but the important thing that needs to come out of this group, which we all know, is that coming from the world of climate diplomacy, which is my background, I'm a recovering diplomat, I joke sometimes, cryosphere is seen as a fringe issue. You know, permafrost, ice sheets, glaciers, snow, also the polar ocean, sea ice. It's seen as something on the fringe of the negotiations. And if we as a group can bring this to the center, because of course we all know that what is happening in these regions is irreversible. It's already happening at 1.2 degrees. It will get worse for each 1/10 of a degree. And if we can bring from these meetings the message from the scientific community that we really need to stop this, that these processes are irreversible, that we cannot keep on doing what we're doing, or we're really going to reap some very, very severe consequences, not for these regions, even though we care about them. The impacts are global. The impacts are around the world. We need to make it clear that the cryosphere is a global issue for everyone on the planet. And if we can do that, then we've done good work these 3 days. Thanks.
Thanks, Pam. There are two Western part speakers, so we need definitely to have Nepal on board, and ICIMOD. All of you know ICIMOD, but we are very pleased to have you on board.
Excellency, 1 minute.
1 minute and a half, because you made a long trip.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Excellencies, eminent scientists, ladies and gentlemen. I think everybody knows what Paris is remembered most for. I think more than its beauty, natural beauty, more than its people, the rich cuisine and everything, Paris is being talked about as the city where we achieved a major breakthrough, the Paris Agreement in 2015. And I think we now have an opportunity to hit another breakthrough, to save the glaciers, to save the ice. So I am here to represent the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, the third pole. I think everybody knows that beside North and South Pole, there is a third pole at the center of the planet. I think probably providing the probe that is necessary to keep this planet together. So my expectations, Excellencies, is that at the end of this event, we have our leaders and policymakers listening to science and scientists. And we hope that the scientists would listen to citizens and sometimes to politicians as well. So that is my first expectation. Second, I think we all know now, there's no point repeating, that the glaciers are melting very fast. In the Hindu Kush Himalayan alone, I think this year alone, up to now, we have lost close to 2,000 people to climate-induced disasters. In the last 2 months, we had 2 major GLOF events. One in Sikkim and another in Bhutan very recently. So that's a reality. The crisis is already there. It's not something that we are going to expect 100 years down the line or 50 years down the line. Now it affects everybody, not just the mountains and mountain people. We have the biggest and most populated cities on the coast, which are fed by the rivers that originate from the glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. You name it, Mumbai, Karachi, Dhaka, Shanghai. From Bangladesh alone, I think, Tom, please correct me, the estimate is that close to 18 million climate refugees would be there by 2050. Imagine that. So we need more investment from this conference, commitments to actions, concrete actions. And we need cooperation at all levels, at the local level, regional level, global level, and across professions, across disciplines. So that's my expectation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Liz, you want to? Liz? You want to speak?
No, I will talk later.
Okay, later. Okay. Who is going to speak now? No. Please, one minute.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Zemp. I've been studying glaciers and climate change for 25 years, and since more than a decade, I'm leading the World Glacier Monitoring Service. I'm attending this summit because glacier melt is breaking records year after year. In the past 2 years alone, glaciers in the European Alps lost 10% of the remaining ice volume. You can do the calcs yourself. So I'm attending this summit to emphasize the importance of systematic and long-term observations. It is the observations that tell us why the cryosphere is changing. It is the observations that we need to assess the impact on local hazard situation, regional water availability, and global sea level rise. And we need the observations to check if our measures that we take really have the expected effect. I'm attending this summit to call to halt further human-induced climate change. Well, saying that, we all produced additional emissions to come here. We came by train, by car, and by flights. So I really hope that this summit is producing more than just another declaration on paper. But I think, or I would like to encourage all of us to really aim for an outcome that is resulting in actions to strengthen the monitoring system, and in actions to really result in saving the glaciers and the cold regions for all of our benefit. Thanks.
Excellent. You know, there are some young scientists as well, no?
Yes, but it's not me.
No, not
Not anymore.
And it's APEX is
APEX, the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists.
But if I am right, there is a baby here.
There is a baby, yes.
Yeah.
That's the
It's part of the
latest
APEX.
That's the latest recruits, apparently, yes.
Who can speak on the name of the APEX? You, please.
Hello everyone. Hello Charlie. Nice to meet you again. So I was not aware that I will have the chance to speak to you today. So I'm Gwen Gremion. I'm from APEX, the Association of Earlier Scientists. So we have our president Jose here. He will be on the stage a little bit later. But I'm the president of the French National Institute of APEX, and I'm really glad that we are invited to participate alongside our more senior scientists here. I'm also happy to see that we have young guests and the future generation of scientists with us today. I have the chance to work with them a couple of years back, so I'm really happy to be here and be part of the discussion that we will have for the 2 coming days. So thank you for having us. And thank you, Jan.
Jean. A young and promising scientist, Jane Francis.
Sure, thank you. My name's Jane Francis. I'm director of the British Antarctic Survey, but I'm wearing a hat today as a representative of SCAR, the Scientific Committee for Antarctic Research, and I feel like I'm representing the Antarctic here today. The Antarctic is really important. It's a huge continent of which there is some really important science to be done, but we need to work together. So SCAR brings all the Antarctic scientists together every year for a big annual meeting, but also for special research programs, which is really important. And Antarctica is a bit different from the rest of the world because it's a huge continent. It's a long, long way away from where people live. Nobody lives in Antarctica, and yet Antarctica is having a fundamental impact on all the nations of the world. And it used to be thought that Antarctica was a big nation, a big block of ice, sitting on a big block of rock, and nothing was happening. But now we know that there are changes to Antarctica that we really need to understand because it will affect us all wherever we live. So I'll give a talk in a moment about what SCAR does, but Antarctica is there. It's a long way away from us all, but don't forget it has an important influence on all of us. Thank you.
Now, it's only 30 seconds for everybody. You want to say a few words? No? Of you? No, but decide. Please.
Yes. Just as I jump in this place. And my name is Hiroyuki Enomoto from the National Institute of Polar Research, Tokyo, Japan. After the long flight from Asia, I'm very happy to meet so many my colleagues in the classical science and also international One Planet organizing groups. And I was in, I'm attending this meeting not only for the NIPR Polar Research Scientist, but I'm the vice president of the IASC, International Arctic Science Committee, and I will talk later about that. And I was last time in Paris, 2015, in the COP21. I'm now thinking what has happened after that and what was in progress in that this period. And the problem is not resolved, but cryospheric change is not stopping, and we have many things to do, and we have many things to planning or discussing in this summit. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. somebody just come on stage, because we are not as many as we. Please join us. WMO. It's very important for us as UNESCO, because the World Meteorological Organization and UNESCO are working with us about the idea of the project of the a decade of science dedicated to the polar and glaciers research. Please.
Thank you so much, and sorry for coming late. Therefore, I prepared a 20-minute speech. I hope that is fine. Yes, Stefan Nürnberg from WMO, Director for Water and Cryosphere. Colleagues, in the next 2 days, we will all discuss about the latest numbers on the very rapid sea ice melting in the Arctic region, Antarctica, the really rapid glacier melting, more rapid than we ever expected, the Greenland ice sheet yet as a negative mass balance, sea level rise, etc., etc. I think that's so critical to have the facts clear, to advise properly on policy making. Furthermore, there are the downstream impacts that impact the hydrology, the hydrological dynamics, the water resources, as well as ecosystems and all its services. Therefore, to keep it short, not 20 minutes, we believe from WMO it's so critical to have standardized proper observation, good monitoring networks that really provide a good basis for modeling the results, regionalizing them in space and time, and being able to advise policy and services in the right way. Normative work that WMO is doing, we believe, is critical, and we are very much looking forward to continue working with our members to do that. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the next 2 days.
You had the pleasure to meet the tandem, the scientific tandem, but there is another tandem which is concerned by civil society and NGOs. I would like to ask Émile Dediu and Geneviève Pons to join us, just to say a few words about what they are going to do in the next days, which is also very, very important. Émile, where are you? Please, Geneviève.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very glad to be in this beautiful place with my friend Émile. We are working very closely together for a long time to protect Antarctica waters, and Pascal Lamy with me. Pascal and myself are co-president of Antarctica 2020. Émile is playing a big role in supporting the work of this team, but at the occasion of the Polar Summit, we have broadened our vision, and we have looked at the whole cryosphere, and we have met wonderful people from the NGO community from all over the world, and they will take part to our NGO sessions during the today and tomorrow during the whole summit. And I would like already to thank them very much, because in a very short time we have been able, with their participation, to write recommendations from the NGO communities from the whole cryosphere. And this recommendation will also be annexed to the declaration. And from the beginning, we have worked in the spirit of supporting the messages of the scientific community, because we need to be all together to face the enormous challenges that the scientists are describing to us. And we have to raise their voices and to support their messages in order to mobilize everybody, because we are all affected by what is happening in the poles and glaciers all over the world. They seem far away, but we are a very small planet, and everything that is happening in Antarctica, in Himalaya, in Arctic, in the Andean, is impacting us. I am a bit maybe dispersing what was allowed, but it is a very important part of the work we are doing together.
Thank you, Émile, for your speech. Like that. If somebody wants to say, 13-20 secondes.
Non,
2 secondes.
Alors, I'm Anne Choquet from the French Committee for Polar Research, and I have 2 ideas. We need more information, so help us to have more research. Thanks.
Bonjour.
20 seconds. Please.
From Arctic Circle. We have been working for 10 years now. We are the largest international platform for Arctic issues. And to us, it's just a great honor to be here and be a partner of this summit. We have been thinking about the Arctic community, and for 10 years, we do know that the Arctic is our main concern, but the Arctic is concern for the global community. And we've been working along with EC Vote, our friends. And this is a very important summit, and we're very thankful for the French presidency and for Olivier Pavlov. And we look forward to the next 2 days. We're not scientists, but we're here to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. The cold is getting hot.
Yes, well, thank you very much. Just a few words. I work in Monaco. I'm the Director of Ocean Policy for the Oceanographic Institute of Monaco. Just to say that Monaco in general, Prince Albert II, but the Monaco Ocean team, as I like to call it, is very committed also to poles. We have currently an exhibition which received 1 million people in Monaco in the Oceanographic Museum, and we feel that mediation and communicating about scientific results and making sure that they are available to the general public is very important. So thank you for your work, and to be continued.
Madame?
I'm Lisa Andreasen from the International Association of Cryospheric Sciences, and I will give an overview of IX later. But I hope that this summit will end up with very direct action, so it's not just words on a paper, but the real actions, and I will present IX later on. Thank you.
And unfortunately, there is a very bad news because Mr. Ryabinin wants to speak again. Really? He asked me. He has to say something.
No, actually, Olivier is too kind to me. But you know, what actually was triggered by the previous speeches was the following. So there are several people here who designed the International Polar Year, and also we started to design the International Polar Decade. And one of the slogans that emerged during that time was very simple. What happens in the poles doesn't stay in the poles. I think this is important for us to recognize. Thank you.
So, thank you so much for coming. The conference is over, so that was a great success. So we were so happy to have you. Now, I will explain you, and I will ask Paul Bertrand Barrette, who is the organizer with me of this summit, and also Pascal Lamy, to join on stage. You can come back. Paul Bertrand, you are probably the most important man in this summit.
After you.
No, because you organize it. Qu'est-ce que c'est qu'un One Planet Summit?
What is a One Planet Summit? Particularly this one. What do we expect from this summit? Well, this is an initiative that has been taken. It's a diplomatic initiative. Could you speak in your microphone, please? Yes. Now, this is an initiative that has been taken in 2017 by Emmanuel Macron in order to respond to the multilateral diplomacy in order to face a major challenge in our century: environment, climate, biodiversity, in a situation of international tensions that we have experienced in 2017 and 2018. We're coming back to a challenging period. Multilateralism is should not be taken for granted, and I think that we should try to make it more alive as far as environment, climate, and forests are concerned. So, how are we going to go about it with scientific researchers? The idea is beyond this mission to keep communities alive. Which communities? scientific communities, foundations dealing with cryosphere, NGOs, diplomats, and having all of those people meet and also have meetings with competent ministers, also polar operators. Now, this is going to be the topics that we are going to deal with over the next 2 days. Now, we are going to work for the next 2 days. There are 3 rooms. This room, the Wernicke Amphitheatre. We also have the Paleontology Gallery Amphitheatre. And you will have to cross the Jardin des Plantes garden, and also have the 3rd room, the Grande Galerie de l'Évolution Auditorium. It's very, very beautiful, but not very comfortable. Seats are not very comfortable. That was reported to me this morning. Now, 2 languages, English and French, and food. Food is available. Food and drink is available. Coffee, breakfast, with a tent, catering tent, with food and drinks, and also meals are provided. In the evening, there is an upgrade, because the Albedo Foundation, I would like to thank this foundation, will invite us to a dinner in the Galerie de l'Évolution, Evolution Gallery, which is a really great place to be, very beautiful place. Now, Bertrand, maybe we are going to work for 2 days, tomorrow and today. It's going to be very interesting. It's a first-time summit, but the risk is that we might be disappointed by the political decisions, by the political pundits. It's a risk, but we will manage that risk. We'll control that risk. And in order to do that, we have made specific provisions. We have organized this meeting, and thank you to Gilles Bloch. This is an exceptional place for your debates and meetings. And this meeting is not going to be limited to words. We are going to write to draft documents that are going to be debated. Pascal Lamy is going to do that with you. And this document is going to be, those documents are going to be presented tomorrow to more than 20 ministers coming from all over the world, NGOs, meteorological organization, and ministers. So out of those exchanges, on Friday will result the 3rd summit. All those people who will have debated for 2 days will have these outstanding opportunities to meet chiefs of states in the Grande Galerie de l'Évolution in order to explain your recommendations, including telling them off or criticizing because they haven't done enough in the past. You have to be careful about the environment and tourism, etc., etc. Well, you know that President Macron and his counterparts are very fond of defending the environment. This will be a confidential exchange of views, very conducive to frank discussions. Then we'll have the Paris plea for the polar glaciers. We hope that about 30 countries are going to sign that plea. So we are taking care of that, as well as we're taking care of catering. So we want to be very stubborn about that. I think that polar research is very important, but resources are not enough. Large programs are in the pipeline, and I would like to welcome those initiatives. Those spaces are very fragile, very vulnerable. All the scientists have to have access to this space. Russia is absent, but we have not rejected Russia. It has excluded, this country has excluded itself. But of course, we're willing to welcome Russian scientists. We have to convince large countries like the United States, Russia, and China to join us. And it will take some time. And I think that Mr. Macron is going to try over the next few years. A new coalition is going to be set up with island states and coastal states that are threatened, and they are going to meet in June 2025, the 7th of June 2025 in Nice. Now, the idea of the One Planet Summit is not to replace the UN work, is to support this UN work, this work, the work that is carried out by the UN. Now, we have the COP28 in Dubai in about 1 month's time, and possibly the UN conference on the sea, hosted by France in 2025. Thank you very much. You were doing an excellent job. I'm going to give the floor to Pascal Lamy. Good news, I hope. On Friday for the French research, a polar strategy has been drafted and published a year ago, and it's called To Strike a New Balance Between the Extremes. So I'm relying on Mr. Macron for that. Thank you, Olivier. Very happy to welcome you and work with you in this French is this place which is enshrined in French science and history. It has been built by the king a few years before the French Revolution. So there's a great deal of history behind these premises. A few words about the way we have designed this event, the way we prepared it, the way it's going to be organized. So it's a One Planet Summit, as Mr. Barrett just told you. It's part and parcel of the Paris Forum on Peace and the Peace Paris Forum, and it's a usual organization. We started with a very simple idea, which was we do have to succeed in combining three components: environmental, political, and operational components. Let's talk about environment. I don't want to dwell on that. We would like to give its right place to cryosphere in the ecosystems. We all know, we've just heard about that, we all know that at present cryosphere is not well known and not known that it should be. And this concerns not only scientific experts, but everybody. So we have to fill this gap of knowledge concerning the cryosphere when we talk about the land ecosystems. The second component is political. And I think that we have to move over from our ideas to actions. First of all, we need to have knowledge, then awareness, then policy, and then action. So what we will try to do during those few days is to bridge the gap from knowledge to awareness, and scientists have a role to play, from awareness to political action, and other stakeholders are going to step in, particularly civil society and NGOs, and then we'll move over to action, not from determination, political determination, to action, and we have to mobilize various stakeholders and players, which means results in this kind of coalition that we try to set up, with various players having various responsibilities, various approaches, scientists, civil societies, and typically they are on the same wavelength with sovereigns, states, diplomats, international organizations, and there we might meet some difficulties, as well as operators on the ground, people working on the ground. And we do think that, we hope that it will lead to efficient action that will improve the cryosphere. In this specific case of pearls and glaciers, there are many players like explorers, and they are inspiring for us. They're very good when they want to move from knowledge to awareness, and sometimes to political action when they are well-known and famous. And this time, we need the indigenous populations to play a specific role, and they do have a specific approach concerning those problems, those issues. Now, in conclusion, I would like to say that the way to build coalitions like that is our signature of the Peace Paris Forum, what we call polylateralism. That is to say, to integrate into international cooperation other players than the usual ones. For instance, states. And this is our approach, coalition-based approach with a specific objective during a specific period. I think that we have achieved major achievements since the beginning of the Peace Forum in 2018. So it's up to us to set up the necessary conditions and requirements in order to build this international coalition. This is our joint wish. This is why we have organized this summit, in order to protect more our planets from the very serious threats that might endanger its survival. Thank you. Thank you, Valérie. Now, over to you. It's up to you to work now. Good morning. Sorry for the French-speaking people. I'm going to speak in English, the scientific language.
Some of the scientists across different generations and perspectives. I'm Valérie Masson-Delmotte. I'm a climate scientist, and I was the co-chair of the IPCC Working Group 1 on the physical science basis from 2015 to 2023. And the last IPCC reports have placed a very strong emphasis on changes in the cryosphere and their implications. So we will have a roundtable which has been set up, and I would like to invite to join me Jean Jouzel, who's a well-known paleoclimatologist. And Jean is famous for pioneer work in polar ice core science, contributing to major advances in the understanding of the climate system. I also would like to invite Florence Colleoni, who works in the National Institute of Oceanography and Applied Geophysics in Italy, and Florence is a climate and ice sheet modeler using multidisciplinary approaches across timescales to study the evolution of polar areas, in particular Antarctica. She's also the co-chief officer of the SCAR program on instabilities and thresholds in Antarctica, and successfully led a major scientific meeting last September showing major advances in that direction. And very important for me, the last speaker will be José Queiroz, and José is the current president of the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists. Without a young, motivated, bright generation of scientists, there's no science advance. So it's critical to hear his voice, and he's currently a PhD student at the University of Coimbra in Portugal and with the British Antarctic Survey. And his work focuses on deep-sea food webs in an area of the Southern Ocean, looking both at the impact of climate change, but also human pressures and fisheries. So I've joined the round table.
Valérie, do you know how to remove this?
No.
No, you don't know. If somebody knows,
I can carry it.
You think so?
Yeah. It's fixed. Okay. We move the chairs up.
Who has an idea?
We move the chairs up.
We move the chair. Are we? Intelligent people. Yeah. But it's not good for the camera, no? No, it's okay. It's okay for you? Yeah.
So you can see we are very adaptive, and that's one of the challenges associated with changes in the cryosphere. So I'm going to give a brief introduction and then target 2 questions for each speaker. So I would like to stress the major advances in the last decades in the understanding of the cryosphere in the context of past climate variations as well as human-caused global warming. A few highlights. So the cryosphere in mountains, polar regions, has been taking the heat from climate change for decades as a result of human influence on climate, in particular due to the burning of fossil fuels. And it has sweeping and severe consequences for people who depend on the cryosphere, directly or indirectly, on the global climate system, on ecosystems and unique biodiversity. Polar regions, glacier regions, will be profoundly different by the 2050s. And I understand the need to protect the cryosphere, but there are immediate responses to warming and delayed ones. Glaciers will take decades to adjust. The deep ocean, Greenland, Antarctica, hundreds to thousands of years. And for that, there's no going back. A few highlights. 1 ton of CO2 emitted means 3 square meters less Arctic sea ice at the end of summer. 1 degree of global warming means 8% less spring snow cover. 1 degree of warming means about 25% less permafrost volume in the Arctic. And that permafrost contains twice more carbon than currently in the atmosphere, and it's affected by wildfire disturbances. The Southern Ocean takes up about half of the excess heat that is accumulated in the climate system. We see record loss in Antarctic sea ice recently that needs to be fully understood. 1 kilogram of CO2 means 15 kilograms of loss of ice from glaciers. We see a 4-fold increase in the loss of ice from Greenland and Antarctica since the 1990s, and it contributes to the acceleration of sea level rise. Why does it matter? Why does this meeting matter? It's not just the cryosphere for itself. You have more than 600 million people in glacier area, in high mountains, and the profile of risks from natural hazards is changing. We've just heard that from Nepal. There are 2 billion people who depend on the runoff from high mountains, and it's about 2/3 of irrigated areas. There are 4 million people living in the Arctic, and what is at risk is cultural heritage, livelihoods, and by 2050, there will be about 1 billion people on coastal areas directly exposed to sea level changes with major implications. So you can see that what is at stake is the fact that the pace, scale, scope of actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is not there to protect the cryosphere. And the pace, scale, scope of monitoring systems, early warning systems, and adaptation strategies are not yet at scale. And finally, there are major knowledge gaps, in particular regarding Antarctica, and that's why it's the focus of this roundtable. So Jean first, it's really important to have your perspective, because ice core sciences have provided unique records of past polar climate, high mountain climate as well, and atmospheric composition. Can you share what have been the critical insights regarding the role of greenhouse gases in the climate system?
Yes, thanks, Valerie. Yes, so I would like to rapidly evoke one of the aspects of ice sheet and also of glacier is that they offer exceptional archive from our climate and our environment. The first ice core was really in Greenland, it's Camp Century, and there was also after bird in Antarctica, but the more efficient drillers were Soviet drillers, Russian drillers at that time. They were the first to obtain in the 80s, 70s and 80s one ice core covering one entire glacial interglacial cycle back to 150,000 years. And it's really thanks to, so we are in the 80s at that time, it's really thanks to Claude Lorius. I would like to pay tribute to Claude because he was an exceptional leader. He left us the beginning of this year, so thanks to Claude we got access to these Vostok samples, and it gave us to this team and to Russian colleagues to have the opportunity, and thanks to Jean-Marc Barnolat, Dominique Reynaud, and later for CO2, and later Jérôme for methane, the opportunity to show the link between greenhouse gases and the climate over the last glacial climate cycle. It was very important because this was the time of IPCC. And one of the results, indeed, we can estimate from these results climate sensitivity, and indeed we estimate this climate sensitivity 3 degrees for doubling CO2, and it's still valid, obviously. So we only, this was extended, and thanks, there are many colleagues here, to Vostok to 400,000 years, and to EPICA, so thanks to all European and other colleagues who are here from all over the world. There are a lot of collaboration to 800,000 years, still in Antarctica. So we have 2 cores in these EPICA projects, and there are we can look at warmer interglacials than today. We can look to change of reefs 400,000 years ago, and I would like to finish to say that my younger colleagues, and you are part of them, Valérie, and younger colleagues, so you will succeed to go back in time, I'm sure, beyond EPICA, and this project are marvelous, to try to understand this change of rhythm in insolation, in periodicity from 40,000 years to 100,000 years. So this is very important. It's a key aspect of ice core sciences.
Yes, and also it's really important because, for instance, constraints from past climates were used in the last IPCC report to constrain future projections through climate sensitivity, and therefore reduce the uncertainty on future climate evolution. And there have been a number of other advances from ice core records. You've spoken about Antarctica, but also Greenland and our knowledge of past variability.
Sometimes I say there are 2 key findings from ice cores, on climate. There are many other aspects, but one is climate sensitivity, how climate react to greenhouse change and other change, and the second one is really climate variability. We were very surprised so the first results came from Dicely in the beginning of the 80s to see that there were rapid change. We were not taught that there was rapid change, and this was, I was in central Greenland in the beginning of the 90s, and this was Grip and Gibbs too, so a collaboration again with US people were also very active, and to show this very rapid change, more than 10 degrees Celsius in a few years, and rapid change in all, I would say, climate variables, and this was a real surprise, and this was the name we give to this discovery in the IPCC, in the second IPCC report, and there is this close link between this rapid change and obviously the oceanic circulation and atmospheric circulation too. So this is very important. This was a key finding, but it's also important to see that we have to know climate variability, and you did a lot in your IPCC report over the last millennia, and I like to point out that when you look at climate forcings, they are all recorded in ice cores. You record greenhouse gases, but you are also recording solar modulation, solar variations through beryllium-10, for example. You are also recording aerosol, volcanic events, and so there are marvelous archives of climate which are tell us about how climate, what is the origin of climate variability of this shorter time scale, and we understand, Valérie, that it is key to have this, to know climate variability over the last 2,000 years, to be able to say that we are an exceptional period and that this current warming is really due, without doubt, to our activities.
Yes, thank you, Jean. And we see how unprecedented the cryosphere changes are. Arctic sea ice in September loss, unprecedented in more than 1,000 years. Widespread glacial loss, unprecedented in 2,000 years, for instance. It really shows the scale of the reaction of the cryosphere to fossil fuel burning and the increase in greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you, Jean. So, Florence, I'm turning to you. And IPCC reports have highlighted how much the cryosphere now is a dominant driver of sea level rise, together with ocean warming, which is accelerating. And it also highlights the deep uncertainty that remains associated with ice sheet processes. So what are for you the research directions to advance our knowledge on these ice sheet responses, which are critical to inform coastal responses?
Well, as Jean said before, there have been major advances and breakthrough in the understanding of ice sheets themselves. But what is really critical now is to better understand our knowledge of the interface with the other component of the climate system, because ice sheet is part of our Earth and our climate system. And the major uncertainty that we have about the physics now are about how the ocean is really interacting with the ice, how is the atmosphere really interacting with the ice. We are really lacking the basic knowledge of the physics of our processes. So, because we have very few observations, most of those processes occurs are a few days to decades, but most of those processes also occurs on centennial timescales and also millennial timescale. So the time span of observation that we have now is of course not enough for us to really infer a really strong physics right now. So we do our best in the community, we do our best to also use evidence, multiple lines of evidence with present observations, but also past observations, because that's for sure those past observations tell us that those, let's say, interaction occurred. And the one that is particularly important right now is the one occurring below at the interface of our floating termination of the glaciers in Antarctica, the one that leads to the ice shelf disintegrations. If we remove them, of course, we will accelerate the ice flow and the ice loss into the ocean. And our projections definitely tells us that it could lead to multi-meter sea level rise in really worst case that we are not able to really mitigate anything. This is definitely not science fiction, because most of our paleo evidence tell us that we got multi-meter sea level rise in the past in a very short amount of time. So we are not imagining them, we are not inventing them, but what we need now is to develop the physics to really reproduce them. And this is where we need this frontier in research right now, really ocean interactions, but also atmospheric interaction with the ice sheets. And we are lacking that strongly. And what we have been doing in all the different research programs with SCAR and other Antarctic initiative now is to try to fill the gaps in this emergency of understanding the physics of those processes by bridging also the paleoclimate with the future, because this is the only way we have right now to develop a strong physics in our model.
Thank you for stressing the importance to bring these multiple lines of evidence together. And more broadly, you stress the importance of interdisciplinary approaches related to ice sheet instabilities. Can you explain why they are critical, and also how the science and the advances in the science of ice sheet instabilities can best inform decision-making? We're talking about major costs related to response options on coasts, as well as possibly a planned relocation that will need to be discussed and defined in the coming years and decades.
So we said before, what happens in the poles do not stay in the poles, so that exactly that. What's occurring in Antarctica and Greenland when we melt the ice influences all the rest. I mean, we decrease the topography at the surface, so we change the circulation at the surface. We melt the ice and we interfere with the oceanic circulation, so we change our heat balance through the latitudes. We change our radiative balance at the surface, so of course it will have major impacts on our climate, the way we are living, etc. So multidisciplinary research now is also another big frontier, so it means that we need also to make progress in climate projections. Some of the physics here is also missing for many gaps, for many processes occurring at the poles. But so right now what we have is some projections that indicate to us that we could have, according to if we meet the Paris Agreement, and we should still have that as target, meeting the Paris Agreement, having half meter sea level rise at the end of the 21st century, even with this very optimistic target, because of the physics of the system that traps the heat and release it on very long time scale. So that's something we cannot avoid. So adaptation is really the word of this century, because adaptation needs to be really talked about, because it's really territory specific. It's not something that we can uniformly agree on, but what we can uniformly agree on is the mitigation. And if we don't do that, for example, if we do not really come with some solution about that, we can really end up this century with above 1 meter sea level rise, in the case of adverse scenarios, even more than 1 meter sea level rise. And on the longer term, as we say, because all those processes of instabilities occur on a few centuries time scale, let's say, definitely multi-meter sea level rise, even with the basic physics that we have right now.
And so this gives one critical example where each step of science advance, understanding if there are committed responses from sectors of Antarctica, what they imply in terms of magnitude and rate of sea level, requires spaces to bring together scientists, practitioners, decision makers, coastal cities, exposed islands and states, so as to advance together to inform decision making. It's really critical with that example. So, Jose, I'm going to turn to you now, and I would like to really thank all the early career polar scientists who, within APEX, have delivered collective review comments to the IPCC reports, the special report on the ocean and cryosphere, and the related chapters in the main working group reports. This was really an amazing quality review process from multiple perspectives, and it shows the strength of the coordination of young scientists. So I'll first address your own research area, and it's really important that you are here because most of us work more on the physics part of the cryosphere, and it's really important to stress the importance of ecosystems and biodiversity, also with frontier research. So you work on changes in deep water, Southern Ocean ecosystems, and they are heavily affected right now. Changes in circulation, recent loss of Antarctic sea ice, changes in productivity, and increased human pressures from fisheries. Can you explain why there is an urgent need to better understand these deep sea ecosystems in the Southern Ocean?
Yeah, thanks a lot. The deep ocean has a problem. It's cold, it's dark, doesn't produce nice photos, so most of the times we forget about it. But it actually have a huge role in the Southern Ocean and the entire ecosystem. And the way it is structured, for example, with the food webs, play a major role, for example, in the carbon uptake from the Southern Ocean. And the Southern Ocean uptakes around 40% of the anthropogenic carbon you produce worldwide. It also has a major role in the nutrient that is delivered to the other oceans, again, if we change the structure of these food webs. It will affect this nutrient cycle. However, we mostly don't know how it's structured, but we know it's already changing, because from the few evidence we have from previous research and previous studies, things are changing already. And not knowing how they are structured, it's bad, because we cannot estimate how things will change in the future. And not just about it. Every day we still discover new species on the deep sea, and for example, from a human perspective, we don't know if we are not losing already species that are producing components that can be applied, for example, in medicine to cure sickness, that we don't know to cure them. But also, we don't need to forget, and we are here to talk about climate change, but humans also, anthropogenic pressures, act together with climate change. Yeah, species are in danger because of climate change, but together with that, we connect with fisheries, not just on the deep sea, but for example on surface waters, with tourism in polar regions, the scientific activity also. So it's really important that we understand how human impacts and climate change is affecting the function of these ecosystems in the surface, but also on the deep sea.
Yes, thank you for stressing the multiple drivers of pressures locally as well as globally, and the need for knowledge to design sustainable practices in a fast-changing environment, because I think that's really critical to inform decision-making. And what you are doing is really cutting-edge research. It's very hard to reach these areas. There's a need for new technologies to study the deep sea and the overall ecosystem. Can you highlight the importance of early career scientists to advance polar and cryosphere research?
Yeah, early career science is actually, I must say, really important. Yeah. For several reasons, actually. Yes, we need new technologies, and there are a couple of studies already showing that early career scientists are more prone to test and develop new technologies, and this is really important, for example, to study under the ice. It's impossible for us just to go there and swim and see animals, so we need technologies to do that for us. But not just about this. For example, in the deep sea, we do a lot of interdisciplinary studies, and again, ECRs have the potential to do this collaborative and try to understand these different techniques, different perspectives from different disciplines, and not just about science. Because, for example, ECRs and, for example, APEX, we have more than 5,000 members in more than 80 countries in all continents. ECRs tend to be more diverse, so we have more diversity, and it is already shown that more diversity in teams lead to better results because we have different cultures, different perspectives approaching the same problem, which delivers more and new things. But yeah, but with this, I would like to highlight the importance of ECRs on the science, and we need to support them with long-term funding so we can just focus on our research and don't try to always search for funds, and deep focus on these long-term data sets that are really critical to understand how these ecosystems are changing.
So it's a call for more trust in early career scientists and more time to do basic research.
Yeah.
And my last question to you will be about the key importance of enhancing cryosphere literacy. This is striking for me. I've discussed with policymakers, I've discussed with people in various circles, and it's really striking that many people know very little. So do you see a specific role of early career scientists to help enhance cryosphere literacy globally so that people feel that it belongs to them, feel connected to the cryosphere, and are motivated to take action?
Yeah, it's true. Education and outreach, it's really important to raise awareness about the problems that polar regions are facing. And early career scientists may have an important role. For example, as an example from APEX, we have twice a year the Polar Weeks, where we go to schools, try to raise awareness, but also within the general public. Because having the general public in the side of climate change is really important, because we can't just go to policymakers and say, yeah, this is really important, but in the end, it's votes that count to them. So if we have the public asking and demanding more climate change, more policies that face and target these issues is really important. And ECRs have an important role on this because you have the time to do it. We don't need to manage institutes or so. We can just focus on that. We have, for example, if we're arguing with people on the iSkills, we know the problems. If they ask, we want a phone, how to do it, we are in the position to say, you don't need a phone every month. Well, my parents, for example, they don't use a phone. So for them, so having this perspective from early career scientists on the education outreach, and most important, bring the polls to the people. Not saying, yeah, polar bears will lose their eyes. Yeah, we are sad, they are cute, except when they eat seals. But what matters to the people is like, we have a drought one week and we have a flood on another week. So try to make them understand that changes on the poles will affect their lives. So they have the general public with us.
Thank you very much. So you see different generations of scientists the state of knowledge now and the importance of support for scientists to advance the state of knowledge. And to close this brief overview, I just would like to give you, each of you, the floor for one short sentence. Why does this One Planet Polar Summit matters for you?
So exactly for what, I really wish to surely career scientists, full success in all your projects, and it's clear for this that because you are a very bright generation, and it's very important to all aspects of cryosphere in a warming world, and it's clear that you need support. The support, we got support over the last decade, and you need this support, and this is one of the, I would say, objective of this summit, clearly.
Thank you. Florence?
I think what is important is to promote strong science with no limits about scientific explorations, both of unknown territories in the pole and especially in Antarctica, but also in the physics that we use. So no limit is something I really would like to stress in this summit.
Thank you. Jose?
Yeah, I expect a lot, actually. This is my first time in an event like this, so I'm here also to learn. But I expect that scientists here together deliver a good message to policymakers, so we can push forward with this urgency that we have for climate change in polar regions and in the world.
And from my perspective, I would like to highlight one thing. Cryosphere research has advanced a lot in the last decades, but the first time the word cryosphere appeared in a COP decision from the UN Convention on Climate Change was at COP27 last year. And it's really critical to better understand why we need to care for, in particular, irreversible changes in the cryosphere, ecosystems, cultural heritage, and transfer that single word in a COP decision into effective action. Thank you.
Bravo. Merci. Thanks so much.